Two Americans sentenced to prison for North Korean tech worker scheme. Two Americans have been sentenced to years in prison for their roles in the covert scheme that defrauded major U.S. companies while generating $5 million for the North Korean regime, the Justice Department said Wednesday. Jen Shin, Danny Wang, 39, and Kejia Tony Wang, 42, both of New Jersey, were alleged the middleman in the elaborate conspiracy that involved tricking Fortune 500 companies to hire overseas tech workers who stole the identities of various Americans. A federal court in Boston sentenced Jen Shin Wang to over 7 years in prison and Kejia Wang to 9 years in prison. At the heart of the scheme were laptop farms or clusters of U.S. company-issued computers that Wang and Wang allegedly managed from their homes in the U.S. Those laptops gave the overseas tech workers a foothold into major American companies to draw salaries and, in one case, steal export controlled data from the California-based defense contractor. Other companies who unwittingly paid the overseas tech workers include the semiconductor distributor in Massachusetts and the software development firm in California, according to prosecutors. North Korea is increasingly turning to such schemes to circumvent sanctions and generate revenue for each nuclear weapons program, according to U.S. officials. In 2024, prosecutors charged the Arizona woman in the similar scheme that compromised the identities of 60 Americans and affected 300 U.S. companies, including a premier Silicon Valley tech firm. The North Korean government has stolen billions of dollars in recent years by hacking cryptocurrency exchanges and using IT workers to infiltrate U.S. tech firms, according to U.S. officials and private experts. The U.S. government has tried to crack down on the schemes while publicly and privately warning companies across the country of the evolving threat from North Korean IT workers. There's still plenty of work to do. The State Department on Wednesday offers up to $5 million for information on several other people allegedly involved in generating revenue for the North Korean regime. Attorneys for Kezia Wang and Jianxin Wang declined to comment. The pair previously pleaded guilty to charges related to the scheme. The two men allegedly set up front companies in New Jersey to falsely claim that the tech workers were authorized to work in the U.S. Other members of the conspiracy allegedly used the background check firms to identify U.S. persons whose identities they wanted to steal. At least 80 U.S. persons had their identity stolen, according to prosecutors. Once money is stolen on behalf of the North Korean regime, it's a cat and mouse game for U.S. law enforcement to try to seize the money before it is laundered and eventually makes its way to Pyongyang. In this case, U.S. officials were able to seize tens of thousands of dollars last year, a fraction of the stolen $5 million, according to a Justice Department official. The $5 million in revenue was laundered to Chinese accounts controlled by the conspirators, which includes the North Korean nationals, the Justice Department official told CNN. Network of North Korean tech workers increasingly rely on US-based LLCs to create the appearance of legitimate employment, said Michael Barnhart, a researcher at insider threat firm Dtax Systems. Pairing a U.S. person, a U.S. address, and the front company, the facilitators created the illusion of a legitimate domestic effort, allowing the allowing the IT workers to present themselves as US-based without triggering suspicion during onboarding or daily workflows, Barnhart told CNN, referring to the scheme connected to One and One. A growing number of staffing and recruiting agencies were unknowingly enabling this ability by vouching for these workers, claiming to have completed the background check and due diligence. Barnhart said he also warned that North Korean IT workers have embedded themselves as subcontractors to reach larger targets that contract with the government around the world. This story has been updated with additional information.